Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 44, the last one of season 2. I know you're very saddened by that, but we're going to take a small break, but it's for a very good reason. I'm going to become a father.
Yeah, and everything is going to go exactly according to plan, and you are going to get a lot of sleep, and you are going to have no disruptions to your daily schedule.
No, none whatsoever. This is going to be a perfectly seamless transition into a brand new lifestyle with no problems, no unforeseen situations or circumstances whatsoever.
And I will tell you that your wife will be 100% exactly the same with her emotions and her responses to the child's needs.
Oh, yes. There will be no change whatsoever in my wife's behavior or mental status or anything of the sort.
He has no idea, folks. At least I have a kid. I could say a little bit. Anyone could say something, but it's not the same until you experience it. I'm looking forward to this.
For what it's worth, I know it's going to be a major drastic change. My sister has 2 kids. I was obviously there. I'm godfather to your child. So I'm aware of the impact that having a baby has on your life. I can't say exactly what all those impacts are going to be, but I know it's never going to be the same. But we are very, very excited.
I'm so glad you're excited because, folks, you know, those of you that have kids, you know that he still doesn't have any idea.
Your Schadenfreude is scary right now.
Oh, well.
Thanks for the love. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But it's in all seriousness, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be taking a few weeks off while we get adjusted to the new baby. And then we will come back in 4 to 6 weeks, knock wood. Hopefully it's about that time. We'll keep you posted on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find us at all the usual locations, Capes on the Couch. You can follow us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Capes on the Couch, and you can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. Side note, if you are listening to this podcast on a platform that allows you to like, rate, and review, please leave us a positive rating and review. That helps us grow in the standings, helps us get exposed to more and more people. And if there's one thing we love, it's exposing ourselves to more people.
That didn't come out the way you intended.
Came out exactly the way I intended it. I was looking you dead in the eye when I said it, too.
In that case, I disavow all knowledge of any sexual predators that may or may not be involved in this show.
Why don't you have a seat? Do you know why you're here? Chris Hansen, what are you doing here? So before we get started, our shout out of the week is Blood and Black Rum. This is a very, very funny podcast. It's run by Ryan and Chris. They are 2 guys. They drink beer and they talk about mostly cult films. They do some current reviews. I know they just did one for the Captain Marvel film, and they've done a lot of the more modern films. But their bailiwick really is the cult schlocky horror films from the 80s and 90s. And to that, we say, first off, kudos for a brilliant idea, Ryan and Chris. But we have 2 recommendations that we would love to see you do on your show. The first one I will say is Jack Frost. And I'm not talking about the Michael Keaton feel good he gets turned into a snowman film. No. I'm talking about the one where Shannon Elizabeth gets impaled in the bathtub by icicles and carrot.
Yeah, that really did happen.
It absolutely happened. And Doc, you want to handle the second one?
Sure. I just realized I'm going to name 2 here because you've already done many of the Leprechaun movies, and we greatly appreciate that. However, maybe we missed it, but you missed Leprechaun in the Hood. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that right. Leprechaun in the Hood.
With Postmaster P, because he delivers positive messages.
Also, though, there was a sequel to that one, Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Yes.
So have to mention both of them, right? I really hope if you hadn't planned on doing it, or if you already have, then great. We'll look at your archives. But please, 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 we're begging you.
Yeah, so Ryan and Chris, if you haven't checked those films out, we're just making our little suggestions there. But please check them out as well if you're into reviews, funny reviews of horror movies and guys talking about really, really dumb films. They are a delight as always. But back to our Patreon page, our newest president level Patreon, Ariel, has suggested, she actually made the suggestion that we do this episode for April. And then I told her, well, we're going to be on hiatus in April, so we'll bump this up. So this one's for you, Ariel. As per your request, we are going to be covering Talia al Ghul. So this is going to be a fun one because it gives us a chance to revisit some of the stuff that we discussed with her father. But as way of background, Talia al Ghul was created by Dennis O'Neil and Bob Brown in Detective Comics number 411 in May of 1971. She's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, and she was first introduced simply as Talia. We didn't know that she was his daughter at first. Batman rescues her from the League of Assassins, and she ends up shooting her captor to save Batman. It's later revealed that there was a kidnapping in which she was a huge part of it, and that was a test by Ra's to see if Batman would make a good husband for Talia. Now, Bruce rejected the offer, but he did fall in love with Talia. So there is definitely something there, and it ends up being this on-again, off-again love interest relationship. She knows he's Bruce Wayne, and it's a back and forth because now she's kind of loyal to her father, but she also loves Bruce. It's a very difficult situation for her to be in.
I'm also going to wonder aloud about someone like Bruce Wayne, Batman, being that vulnerable in those circumstances really allowed him to express the romantic side of himself that is pretty much the only part of his personality I think he lets get the best of him sometimes. He is so regimented in so many other ways, but I don't want to digress too much into Batman as a character. Yeah,
this isn't about him. Lord knows we could do an entire multi-part series just on Bruce Wayne. But so she marries Bruce in 1978 with her father's approval, which is very interesting how that ends up playing out. And she becomes pregnant with Bruce's child, but she realizes that she can't stay with him. So she fakes a miscarriage and annuls the marriage.
I really wonder how anyone could get away with doing that. Like, whoops, sorry, not a kid.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that because I'm a man and I'm about to be a father, and that's just a whole area I don't want to get into. But the boy ends up dropped off at an orphanage, and we later determined that he grows up to become Damian Wayne, son of Batman. He eventually becomes Robin, and so on and so forth. And Damian, we could definitely do an entire episode or several just on Damian Wayne.
Yeah.
Because that kid has seen some shit.
Sorry, I didn't quite expect that.
So Talia takes over LexCorp when Lex Luthor becomes president of the United States, and it turns out that she was actually double dealing against him, and in an attempt to undermine him, she sells all of the assets of LexCorp to the Wayne Foundation, leaving Lex broke as a joke, or as my friend Tim would say, broker than your neighbor's ass.
Wow. That's a unique saying.
Yeah, I don't know where he got it from, but he's a strange bird.
Well, I'm just glad that it shows that Talia really still cares about Bruce enough and what his causes are that she'd be willing to wholeheartedly support him all the way, right?
Yeah, until she gets kidnapped by her half-sister Nyssa, and if you want to learn more about Nyssa, you can listen to the Ra's al Ghul. We're going to assume at this point that if you haven't already, just for some backstory, we recommend you listen to the Ra's episode. It was several episodes back. So you can put this one on pause, go listen to Ra's, and then come back to this one. So she gets kidnapped by her half-sister Nyssa and brainwashed to turn against their father. Nyssa ends up killing Ra's, and we find out that this was actually a ploy all orchestrated by Ra's so that both of his daughters would take over for him. And so both women end up, in fact, taking over his organization. So then Bruce gets killed. That's Death of the Batman storyline. Apparently he dies. because it's Batman, and you know that they're never actually going to kill off Bruce Wayne for any substantial period of time.
Yep.
So after Bruce is apparently killed, she tells Dick Grayson, who's now operating as Batman, to take Damian under his wing as the new Robin. But after Damian gets injured, something happens to his spine, she implants a device in his spine that allows her to control him, and she uses Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, to control and manipulate him. And then she starts to clone him to create a more obedient son, because apparently she didn't really appreciate the fact that Damian was kind of popping off at the mouth and not really following along with her goals and plans for exactly what it is that she wanted for him.
Yeah, how Al Ghulian of her.
Yeah, like father, like daughter. So in the Batman Inc. storyline, she takes control of an organization called Leviathan, and their goal is basically to kidnap Damian back and kill Batman.
Well, so much for that allegiance.
Yeah. So her Damian clone ends up killing the original, and she poisons Batman in a battle, but she gets killed by Kathy Kane, and then Raish, who has been resurrected, surprise, surprise, he brings her body to a Lazarus pit to resurrect her, and she awakens, but with no memory of her former life. Then we move into the DC Rebirth era, and Talia fights Catwoman after finding out that she's engaged to Bruce.
I'm sorry. I have to say it. This was an actual cat fight.
Get out.
All right, cool.
So the last thing, one of the most recent storylines that she's been involved in, she lied to Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, and told him that Damian is really his son in an effort to get Slade to kill Bruce, or at the very least pit Deathstroke and Batman against each other. And it worked, but Batman reveals, I know he's mine. He's not Slade's.
So they didn't need Maury or anything?
You are not the father. Do a little dance. Make a little love. Get down tonight. So moving into the issues now, the first and foremost thing, and this is something that always, I guess, really defines Talia as a character, is this torn loyalty between her father and the man that she loves. And it's very Montague Capulet almost, in a way, because very much like that, you have people, star-crossed lovers. A lot of people are dying, except in this case, they get resurrected. So it's like Romeo and Juliet, but better, or at least without the finality of death.
You've given a sublime example. I'm going to take it to the ridiculous.
Please do.
So there was a politically incorrect show called Married with Children. I don't know if you know the character Al Bundy.
He scored 4 touchdowns in a football game.
Yep, the state championship.
Yes, it was.
The reason I bring him up is that's who I picture as the stereotypical father protecting their daughter at all costs. Raish doesn't necessarily do that in that fashion, but it's very clear how much he cares about her and how much he cares about her carrying on his goals. Sometimes his goals are more important than her as a person, but listen to the previous episode for that. Talia's point in all of this is that whatever experiences she's had with him, for the most part, they've been productive. She clearly loves that man, and she clearly wants to have a good relationship with him. And that may have gone on forever if she didn't happen to fall in love with Batman. Some people may say, well, anybody that falls in love with Batman, they're going to become the number one. But I think that's a little too idealistic. I get that Batman has all these cool toys and he's very smart and he can fight and he's mysterious, all the typical stereotypes that you would expect of someone that's able to sweep someone off their feet. But that's not germane to what might be an issue for Talia. He could be the worst human being imaginable, and her father could be the greatest hero ever. We can turn it around any way we want. We can create any combination of those two people. And anytime that situation comes up, you have to choose. That's a scary thing to say. I'm not making it sound like either or, but I am saying that the ratio of what you are, or the
ratio?
Darn it. I was really trying to pull it back after I said it because I heard it in my head.
That's okay. Just go with it.
The point being, there's only so much time and energy you can spend with any one person in the world. And the transition is going to happen, as any parent knows, where as someone reaches adulthood, and before then, you're going to spend more time with your significant other. And that creates a scenario where you have to let go of some of the things that your parents told you, and you have to move forward with someone who you think you know, but you're going to learn more about. Talia went through a lot of the typical things we would expect. They had flirting. They had common experiences. They processed it together. They had intimacy. They had offspring. They had marriage that didn't last. These are all things we can directly relate to. Nothing I'm saying is germane to a specific comic. The fact that Talia is going through this with an overlord-style father and a dark superhero significant other is not nearly as important as it originally sounds. It plays out cooler because they get into different adventures and fights and all of that stuff, so that's better to look at and read in comics. But it doesn't change the fact that that transition is the most important, other than with a child, the most important transition that a person is going to have in their life. Because you have to acknowledge you can still have a positive and loving relationship with the people that raised you while moving forward with the person that you're going to spend, in theory, the rest of your life with. Even if it's not that same person, the fact that you're making that choice, that you're making that transition, and willing to accept that you're moving on that balance and creating an imbalance, that allows for healthy growth. There's a huge argument to be made that when the parental figure challenges that, they're simply testing if you're ready to accept that level of responsibility. So Raish putting that literal test to Batman wasn't necessarily an insult, and it wasn't just the idea that he would be the next heir. It was also an acknowledgement that you are worthy of being with my daughter. And he says so. But there is also the reality that there is no absolute guarantee that that has to happen in life. So I'm actually going to take it even darker than the way it was presented in the comics. There are plenty of occasions where a person is going to pick a significant other that is not only considered negative to most people that meet them, but is a negative to the parental figure. And that child makes the conscious decision to create a negative relationship with their parent just out of spite, so that they can continue with the relationship with a negative person, even if that person that is now their partner is abusive or neglectful.
So you're describing all of my girlfriends in high school and college.
Hey, you said that, not me, man.
Oh, no, I fully admit it. I picked some real winners back in the day, and my mother hated them all. Literally, my wife is the only woman I've ever dated that my mother likes.
I can picture that. I can totally picture that. Yes, absolutely. And we've all gone through this that have had relationships and had parental figures. So I think we all can relate to what Talia must have been going through. It doesn't matter whether or not we would have made the same decisions. Just acknowledging that it's something you have to do can be incredibly empowering. And if things don't work out on one end or the other, that doesn't have to be the end. Things can change over time, just to make sure people are aware of that. But we'll get more into that with treatment.
So the next issue that Talia has, and this is after she gets kidnapped by her sister, she becomes much more detached from humanity like her father. Whereas previously, Talia was on the fence, but we'll say she was overall I don't want to necessarily say that she was a good guy, but she was an ally to Batman more often than not. After the kidnapping, she definitely became much more of an antagonist. And the kidnapping presents a major shift, not only in her relationship with Bruce, but also in her characterization as a person. And I guess this gives us an opportunity to talk about what a kidnapping and trauma and brainwashing can do to a person.
So the term that most commonly nowadays is used is Stockholm Syndrome. And a lot of people don't recognize what that comes from, and I'm not going to give a dissertation on that. But the point is, if you spend enough time with people that have a gripe or a grudge against a certain other group of people or organization or a certain view, try your best. But if that's the only view you see in an intense emotional situation, whether you intend to or not, you are going to start to incorporate that into your own personal view. That is not something I'm saying is healthy. It is something I'm saying that is human nature and highly probable. That is something scary to say, because most people, when you ask them or mention, as you said, brainwash, what is the typical reaction you'll get from someone? Oh, well, that can't happen to me. No. I'm too rational for that. Or I'm too smart for that. Or whatever defensive statement that they're going to make. And sociological evidence proves otherwise. We are not immune to the emotions and responses of others, especially when they are 2 points. Very intense, very direct. I said 2 points, but I guess it's 3. And very isolated.
Well, I was going to say, just on a side, I think so many people claim that they're not going to fall victim to brainwashing because they consider brainwashing equivalent with, I would guess, maybe hypnosis, in the sense that they'll see it coming and they'll be able to mentally steel themselves against it. Whereas so much of what really is brainwashing is much more subtle influence, and you're laying the groundwork. It's things like gaslighting. It's things of a much more subtle nature, and you're setting the seeds. Parents can brainwash children very easily. Partners can do it in a romantic relationship setting. There are so many ways people can get brainwashed. It's not just this Clockwork Orange notion of we're going to pry your eyeballs open and force you to stare at stuff until it's seared in your brain. That's an extreme case. That's not realistic.
Right.
But I know I'm stepping on your toes. I don't want to.
No, you're not. You're doing an excellent job pointing it out in a way, as you often do, a bit more articulate than I am. And just to clarify some of the references, Clockwork Orange and Gaslighting from Gaslight. Because we actually have an audience, I'd like to think, that would know what those references are, but not everyone does.
Well, I've never actually seen Clockwork Orange, but I am familiar.
How dare you?
I am familiar with it through the zeitgeist. Listen, I have seen Gaslighting, for what it's worth. Oh, Paula,
Okay.
you are not. You are going crazy. No, Paula.
Right. Well, okay, so gaslight refers to the idea that a person is intentionally manipulating the environment and ignoring the stimuli to the other person to make them think that they are hallucinating, and then reiterating to them that this is all false. Clockwork Orange was more Skinner conditioning, just straight we are going to give you these stimuli that are intensely negative and show you things that you used to associate with being positive, such as violence and sexual assault. But because we've now associated it with a negative stimulus, you're going to retch and not be able to function. By the way, both of these sound absolutely horrible, so don't do them. The problem, of course, especially with Talia's case with Nyssa, is at least Nyssa was doing it intentionally, but in real life, most of the people that are doing quote unquote brainwashing may not be aware that that's what they're doing. They're just living their normal lives. They're answering the basic questions that, for example, children will ask. I think Talia's relationships are a great example of that, because why would Nyssa want to do this in the first place? Well, because she didn't exactly have a great time with people like Raish in the first place, if you want to go back to that history. So she has an axe to grind. So why wouldn't she say to someone like Talia, who is now her own blood, yeah, that guy's bad. But of course, she doesn't say it that way. It comes through, even in the comics, if you read them, it comes through much more organic, because people talk in conversation. People don't talk in these blunt statements to get people to change their mind, unless they're on social media.
Womp womp.
It's the truth, though. That's my observation. So here's an opinion that I'm presenting as fact, and if you disagree with me, then you're just wrong, and I'm going to disassociate with you from here on out. So that brings up the opportunity for someone like Talia, who has had more experience growing up with her father, to take what are some biological traits, as well as some cultural and directly observed traits from her experiences, and incorporate them with this new information presented from an outside source that, because it's someone related to her, is also considered a trusted source. You combine those factors and you end up with someone that's willing to change their mindset and do it in a way that ironically is very similar to the person that they are attacking. So I think it's a well done comic role, because when you read how Nyssa speaks, I don't know if you've actually seen it, it's not condemning everyone all at once. It's pointing out that plenty of people have had opportunities to do good things and they failed. So in theory, she has all the evidence she needs. Just look at me and you'll see it. I don't have to hammer it home to you if you believe me. And I've pointed out in the blog when I mentioned Negan, which is another interesting episode, pointing out that there are many different ways to persuade someone. And the blunt force way is the last ditch effort of someone who is ultimately going to fail. The subtlety that is at play with characters like Talia and Raish and Nyssa is something that is missing from much of modern culture. So if you haven't read any of the Batman books, I would encourage you to do so, because guess who's doing some of these stories? One of my favorites, Tom King.
Oh, yeah. Tom King. We love us some Tom King. And we've talked about him many, many times on the show, and God bless him and his writing ability. So the last issue that I would say Talia has is, as a mother, Talia is hit or miss. Usually she's fiercely loyal to Damian and puts him above all else. But as we mentioned earlier, she did take control, or attempt to take control, of Damian's body because she felt that he was being disloyal to her and her goals. And she created a clone that she felt would be more submissive, because Damian is, I think, 9-10 years old at this point in the books. And he's doing what 9-10-year-old children do. I'm not even going to put a gender on it. He's doing what 9-10-year-old children do. And that's start to find their voice and really start to become a little defiant. Some kids, it starts earlier than 9, 10, but usually by 9, 10 is when you start to see a lot of kids act out. They decide that they want to be their own person. They start establishing their own identity. And Damian does that, and he wants to align himself more with his father. And this to Talia is a bridge too far. And it's fine if she gets upset by it, but her response is to basically shun her son, not try and reconcile her mindset and her father's goals and try and convince Damian to join her again. It's, you're dead to me, and I'm going to clone a better version of you that will be more loyal to me. And the clone ends up, as we said, ultimately killing the original. So in some twisted way, she got exactly what it is that she wanted. But, and I understand it's going to be difficult for two men to talk about motherhood like this, but Doc, if you can get into a little bit about what would drive a mother, which is supposed to be one of the strongest, most unbreakable bonds in human existence from an emotional and psychological standpoint, to have such a clean break like that and to go a complete 180, what does that entail and what does that mean?
It's interesting that you mention it as such a strong bond, which it is. But Talia had a unique experience. First, she had to disavow knowledge of being pregnant in the first place, which is not that far off than what many women have had to do under certain circumstances for the sake of protecting a pregnancy. So, once again, this is something that hits home in so many different ways for so many people, possibly. If you have to be secretive about every part of your life, including what's considered the most basic directive of life itself, then you have to start prioritizing other things to fill that gap. Talia has every opportunity to do that, though, because she's associated with an overlord father, with the League of Assassins. She's clearly business-oriented later in her life when she takes over LexCorp. She has so many other talents. She develops several parts of her personality incredibly well. That doesn't necessitate acknowledging a child. Thankfully, she gets the opportunity to do so at a later time. She may have missed a major bonding point, though, because when a child is delivered, and we know this now better than we ever have before, one of the first things that you can do is lay that child on the mother's body, because that literally creates the bond that is necessary for mother and child to become one, at least temporarily, and that lasts forever. This child was given up in an orphanage for a time being, for a spell. So she didn't get some of those bonding points. However people feel about breastfeeding, that's one of the most important things that a mother can do if they're capable. Talia doesn't necessarily get that. I'm not blaming her. I'm just pointing out that it can be a major factor as to why she wouldn't have the exact same relationship. Also, I'm going to bring in the cultural background. I'm not talking about geographic culture or religious or spiritual culture or anything of the sort. I'm talking about Al Ghul culture, meaning her father and the organization and the way that things were run there. Incredibly utilitarian, with this overarching goal above all else, including individuality. That's what she's been exposed to, and that's what she would carry for quite a while. So she may have the schema that associates a child as a little adult. That's not something just unique to Talia. That is something that much of society subscribed to for centuries, the Victorian era especially. You have a child is just a little adult, so treat them like one. Dress them exactly the same, talk to them exactly the same. Do not expect any other behaviors that are different than adults, and if they are there, then you punish them similarly to the way you would punish them with adults, just at a lower level so that you don't kill them. I apologize to sound so brazen with that, but that really is the mindset that would be necessary so that you end up with little automatons that will do everything that you say just right. But you risk losing a huge part of their connection with you. Talia was able to regain that, and I'm arguing that the reason she regained it is because she saw the talents that she had herself when she was younger. Since she went through a similar background in terms of the expectations of production, and he was able to meet those to a certain degree, she could relate to that and recreate the bond in a different way. And that bond can still be strong. It's not going to be the same, but it can still foster the same emotions and the same connection that would indicate this child is now the most important thing in her life. She does get to that point. The problem is, because she had different expectations without that initial bond, it allows her to view things from a much more utilitarian lens. And when things don't go the way they should, according to plan, then you correct it. It's that simple. It's not a matter of reading a self-help guide on how do you punish your children. It's you have a member of the clan that's not doing what they're supposed to.
Somebody's not pulling their weight.
Exactly. So that's much simpler to deal with. That's actually less emotional baggage to deal with. You don't have to foster that bond any further. She brought it up to the point that it was useful. And when it no longer became useful, she cut bait. I'm sorry, I can't imagine doing that myself. I can't imagine most people doing that. But at the same time, I can tell you from direct experience that I've had patients that point out they've had their dad or their mom, and then they had their mom and dad. I'm changing the tone of my voice to indicate that biology doesn't necessarily indicate the connection to true family. And many people go through that. Those people that may have been your biological parents don't always have the same relationship. It can still be good. It can still be positive, but it's never going to equal what the person is able to connect with emotionally when they're at a young age and need the most care. That's important. That's never lost. So Talia pretty much went through that herself, and she passed it along to her son, and she basically is trying to pass it along now through a clone. That's the most far out there thing.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the sum of it.
Interesting. I do want to bring it back. At least the one thing that you said was about treating children like little adults and talking to them like little adults, etc. And I don't think in some respects that that's entirely a bad thing if you take it from a positive, in the sense that you give, and I know this, I'm saying this because my sister is of the school of thought with her children, that you talk to the children in simple terms, but you don't baby things to them, that you give them some choices, you give them some freedom, and it allows them to grow and mature in that sense. And so I understand certainly in the context of the discussion that there is a difference between treating them, giving them some choices, and treating them like an adult and punishing them in that sense. But there is something to be said for treating young children like little adults. And when you said that, that just sort of popped into my head that they never got that bond and they never got that opportunity to do that.
Right. And thank you for the opportunity to clarify. You should be able to talk to children the way you would talk to other people. I don't want to make it sound like you have to do goo goo gaga all throughout their childhood. You can use regular words. You can expand their vocabulary. if they don't understand something, you try to match their level, but still challenge it a bit. So yes, you're absolutely right. And that's something that I certainly try to do with my own child. So you're absolutely 100% correct with that. What I was trying to point out was that there's a difference between trying to foster growth and expecting that the person is already grown.
No, and I understand that. I just wanted to point out, at least from my perspective, when you said that, it just, I guess, triggered that thought in my brain of saying, well, you can treat children like little adults if you do it in a loving, fostering growth mindset. And Talia doesn't do that with Damian ever. So moving into treatment now, and this is, again, something where, and we'd already mentioned this a couple of times, that so many of the issues that Talia deals with are not dissimilar from real life issues. There's a fantastical element, certainly regarding the Lazarus pits and Batman and so on, but Talia is very much a real person with real issues. And I'm not saying that in a sense to diminish some of the other more powered individuals that we've done, or some of the more outlandish, non-realistic fashions, but just the notion that Talia has no superpowers. She's very much just a regular woman. She's trained. She's very athletic and skilled, and she has a number of abilities, but nothing that a real woman in our world couldn't do with unlimited time and resources and so on and so forth. So I'd be very curious to hear what your treatment is for Talia in universe. And then to the extent that there's any distinction, I don't know if there's even an opportunity for you to even draw a distinction. So what would you do in universe versus out of universe? We'll start with in universe.
I think you already hit it. I'm not sure I have a difference for maybe the first time in universe versus out of universe. I approach most of these fairly similarly. The fact that she wants what I would call, and what many people would call, is at times a nuclear family. She wants to have someone that she loves. She wants to have a child that respects her. And she wants to have her career.
Well, times she wants a nuclear family, other times she wants nuclear annihilation.
Okay, fine.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
I set that one up, so yeah. But the point stands. I'm pretty sure she wants what many, many, many people want in the world. So the question is, how do we help foster that? The first thing, and this is going to be one of those where we may get some pushback for what I'm about to say. If you have to create a hierarchy of what's most important in terms of your relationships, your children, your significant other, and your parents, what's the ranking? This is where people start to go wild, because I'm not claiming there is a right answer.
Well, I would just interject. Does your own needs factor into that as well?
What I was going to say is, it's what's most important and most right for that person during that time period. So the answer can be none of the above, but you just freaking killed it, man.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to interject or cut your legs out. My point was just that I was thinking, yes, you've got your child, you've got your spouse, you have your parents, but if you don't take care of yourself, there's not going to be anything left of you to take care of other people.
That's correct.
And so I know certainly in our current culture, the notion of self-care has definitely been promoted a lot more. Certainly we on this show have discussed self-care in a number of ways, that ultimately you have to be able to take care of yourself. Or as RuPaul said, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else? But it's that notion that ultimately you can't give so much of yourself that there's nothing left to give.
Correct. So you identified it first. I would try to make sure that she has a proper intact ego in terms of what her self-esteem is, and if her goals are things that are realistic for her. And they can be very high-reaching because she's shown she has the capabilities of doing anything that any other person can do. And once that's established, as long as there isn't some massive gaping hole that she's missing, I would then start to focus on the other points, depending on what is most concerning to her at the time. So let's say it's her relationship. I would say I would most likely start with her significant other and how she feels it's going, because I'm trying to remember who told me this, but I thought it was quite poignant. The best thing you can do for your children is show how much you love your partner. That is the one thing that all children will see. Yes, they will feel how you treat them, but that time is so incredibly limited. They're going to see how you treat someone that you consider to be your equal, that they know is your equal, if the relationship is anywhere near what it should be. And they're going to base their relationships with just about everybody else on the planet the same way. They may not consciously realize it, and you may not consciously realize that you're modeling that, but that's exactly what you're doing. So in Talia's case, if we're talking in-universe, if she wants nothing to do with Batman and she wants to completely shun him, then you're creating an artificial choice for the children. And I would like to point that out. You're making them choose sides. Let's get real here. Parents sometimes get divorced. What's the one thing that you more than likely shouldn't say to a child if they ask, "How's daddy?" Well, he's just a blank, 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 throwing expletives, downplaying everything that he may represent to that child, because that person is still important in that child's life. And if you automatically make the assumption that the child is going to feel the same way about that person, then either they're going to take your side, in which case they have now just eliminated half of what could be a positive support for them as a parent, or they take the other side and any of the negative traits that may have been true about that parent is now going to be the child's number one exposure. So congratulations, you just took the worst of both worlds. So I would do my best to point out, even if it is the right thing to do to separate from an abusive partner, do not denigrate them to the child, because that will create the type of schism that is difficult to repair later on. So that's one huge point that technically may not be Talia's issue, but it's Talia's issue. If we're talking about the relationship itself, then we've done, I don't know how many episodes about that. What are the goals of both sides? In this case, there's such a disparate set of morals, ethics, whatever you want to call it, that maybe that's irreconcilable. I don't know. She still says that she loves the man from time to time. Not the most recent runs. The most recent runs, actually, she's really an enemy. So maybe not. But whatever it is, make sure that you're comfortable with that decision. Because frequently what I see is people say that they're over it or they're done, but then in the next session, bring that person back up and say, well, and that hesitation, that inability to create a different dynamic and only keep it in the romantic realm is something that I commonly see. Someone like Talia, who from the start with Bruce was all in, and now to sever ties like this, in universe, I would say, can we get to a point where you're not trying to kill him? That's one thing. And then out of universe, well, to be honest, a lot of times it is the same thing. Can we get you to the point that you don't want to kill him? Really? Once again, I'm not exactly sure it is that much different. Some people hold that level of animosity. There is a way to be amicable while still being separate. It's possible. And with someone like her, I have to start with that. Can you see that possibility? Is there a way that we can get to that possibility? If not, then there really isn't a point to have the conversation. Because what many people try and do in therapy is they try and get the therapist to agree with them. And that's not the point. It doesn't matter if I think you're right or not. It's how are you going to handle this circumstance so that it doesn't cause you more emotional trauma? There's a difference there. And Talia is so focused and so intense on her end goals that I don't think she recognizes the emotional trauma that's driving it. So that would take some time. And then, of course, you got the situation with Raish. Oh boy. Once again, something that's going to sound harsh. And I don't say this in sessions with patients, but it's part of the driving reality. And I'm really trying to set this up because I got to soften the blow here. We all know, for the most part, that your parents are probably going to precede you in death. So for some people that feel like they have no way out, that they have such an abusive situation with their parents, they are so overbearing, so dominant that they can't ever escape that no matter what they do in their life, be it intentional or unintentional. The idea that at some point there's going to be some sort of transition that is going to allow them to move forward, be it a natural one or unnatural one, can be the slightest comfort. I do not say it that way to patients. I just point out that there's an opportunity for change.
Well, at least your parents will be dead one day and you don't have to worry about it. I can see how that would not be a comforting thought, or at least not phrased that way.
Right. But I will also tell you that some patients have candidly told me the most relieving part of their suffering was when that parent was put in jail, or that parent left the country, or that parent did die. I've had patients tell me that, and we have to process that because there's still pain involved, because they still are the reason you exist in the first place. So that's the type of connection from the child side that can still be there, even if it's not the same dynamic that you would normally expect. I talked about it already from Talia dealing with Damian, but now I'm talking about Talia experiencing it from Raish. Because, surprise, surprise, it appears that many of the traits that older generations do, whether they wanted it to or not, are passed down to younger generations. So getting someone in those circumstances to recognize that pattern and at some point trying to break it, that may be the best goal possible, because then you're not just helping someone right now, you're helping a lot of people in the future. And sometimes people don't want to deal with that. But if I could, I'd certainly try with her. And I mentioned the whole death thing because with Raish, it doesn't even apply. She'll never get that break. He's always coming back.
And so is she.
So they're going to be stuck because they're always going to have that bond, even if they're not doing the same thing, even if they're not around at the exact same time. It's always going to come back at some point because that seems to be the way that families work. Not always intended, but it's always there. So I would hope someone like Talia would be willing to put in that effort to find out the proper balance for her, because it's different for everyone. But as long as they be willing to discuss each of those dynamics, and maybe each session focuses on a different one, as long as they're willing to put in that effort, these relationships can improve. They can be better. Or if they need to be dissolved, they can be dissolved in a way that doesn't cause damage to other people involved, especially to themselves. So these relationship situations are very fluid, and I wouldn't automatically assume one is more important than the other. But if at any point I felt like there was a true fault where things were breaking down, I try and bring it back to the patient themselves. So there you go. Decent summary, I hope.
I thought it was an excellent job. And again, the fact that we've gone 43 episodes without combining the in-universe and out-of-universe, and we finally reach a point where it's, for all intents and purposes, the exact same thing, I think is interesting and fascinating, if nothing else. So whether it was in-universe or out-of-universe, let's take all of this, and see what happens when we get Talia al Ghul on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Talia. I'm Dr. Issues.
Hello, Doctor.
So what can I do for you today?
I know you spoke to my father previously.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I've had any interaction with the person you're saying is your father.
Doctor, you and I both know he was here. Why don't we skip the pretenses and get to the point?
Very well. I can tell you that all of the information your father and I discuss is 100% confidential. There's no pretense necessary. What's so important about your father anyway? This is your session.
My father is in danger. I fear that anyone who has interacted with him might become a target by people looking to leverage information against him, and you're on that list. In order to resolve this, I need to know what he told you.
Well, if it's a matter of personal danger, I can only divulge what I consider to be necessary.
Necessary for what?
For the safety of him and others. I mean, unfortunately, he was very vague. Other than what you already know about the virus and the Lazarus pits, everything else was his philosophical and political opinions.
He told you nothing about anything important.
Oh, I did my best to engage him in what I consider important for a healthy mental state. I tried to talk to him about his relationships with humanity in general and with people he considers dear to him.
So he mentioned me.
Since that wasn't a particular point of danger, I'll have to keep that confidential. I can certainly talk to you about your views on your relationship with your father.
He's complicated.
And how does that affect you personally?
What did he say?
He said enough for me to know that there are some things you two don't see eye to eye on, but I don't think you're trying to live through him, so perhaps we should focus more on how your goals differ from his.
Your penchant for understatement is frustrating.
Well, I admit it is difficult to remain so subtle and keep so many details secret as part of my profession. I definitely realize that's something you can relate to.
People in my position maintain secrets without a second thought. You would make an effective leader if you utilized your talents in a different venue.
Flattery will get you somewhere, but not in this office. My focus is on your emotional well-being based on all your experiences through life, so my talents are well used for that purpose, if you allow it.
Surely you can understand that someone like me would be remiss if I didn't attempt to persuade you to join me. Consider me a talent scout of sorts. I like you, Doctor, and you still haven't given me what I need. And that says a lot about your skill set. But unlike my father, I do not have patience to match my lifespan. So I'll ask you again, what did he tell you?
I'm sorry. I have to disrupt the flow of our conversation because it's becoming clear to me that you're not putting forth a good faith effort with regards to therapy. I'll make this clear. I don't have any sensitive information about any of your father's plans. If you'd like, there are plenty of topics relevant to you that I think would be productive for your sake. Your relationship with Batman, with
Don't you dare say his name.
Whoa, that's even stronger than... Never mind.
What? What do you mean?
As I said, I don't have any information about his plans, but clearly you've picked up that certain people become important topics. That's all I'm going to say in that context, unless you're willing to...
Face my demons.
I swear I didn't intend that, but the point is still made.
Yes, you've made your point. Now I'm going to make mine. I don't believe that a man such as my father spent as much time with you as he did and said nothing substantive about his plans. If there's one thing I know about my father, it's his propensity to speak about his goals, quite at length, because he considers himself so intelligent and well prepared that even if he tells you something about them, you'll be helpless to stop him. So I know he told you something, and I'm tired of this game.
What game? There's nothing to hide. I'm being as honest with you as I can ethically be.
Men like you hide behind your so-called code of ethics when it suits you, and discard them like trash when the opportunity arises.
Wow, so there's significant gender roles being identified, as well as a pattern of abuse on the part of some male figures in your life. This is important psychological material that we can...
Now is one of those opportunities, Doctor.
You realize this is such a Freudian metaphor, right?
The symbolism is not lost on me, but what will be lost soon is a copious amount of your blood, unless you begin telling me what my father told you. Because what I said earlier is true. My father is in danger, and there are people who want to leverage information against him. I am that person. I am my father's reckoning, and I will be yours if you don't start divulging information.
I can't tell you what he didn't tell me!
So it is then.
I'm sorry. I would have thought that a man that's been around 5,000 years describing his entire life history would have been more pertinent, but really, it was just that droll.
And now you insult him?
No, that's not what
And yet father kept you alive for some reason. I can't get over it. It's been a while since you died.
Well, since she didn't like my last joke, I guess I didn't leave her in stitches, but she certainly left them in me.
Yeah, I don't think stitches are going to fix what she did to you.
And staples and a lot of glue. And I don't know.
Medical miracle?
Well, I mean, the knife thankfully wasn't that sharp, which made it more painful.
Yeah, it's been a long time since you died. I don't even remember the last patient you had that killed you.
Well, the good news is, especially since her father kept me alive, that she was willing to use a Lazarus pit. And I didn't go crazy.
True. Well, any more so than you already are.
Hey, I heard that hesitation.
It wasn't exactly subtle, but you kind of left me no choice. So this is it for season 2. I guess we didn't think about the fact that we didn't have anything really to say at the end of this episode, because normally we segue and we say, well, next week we're going to do X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth.
Well, we can say that we'll be back and that we greatly appreciate everyone that supported us this entire time. We hope you continue to do so.
Yeah, but why would we want to lie to our listeners?
Ooh.
I kid. You know that we love you and appreciate every single one of you that listen, whether it's our patrons, whether it's the folks that are listening to us for the first time, whether it's longtime listeners, whether you've been with us for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or you've been with us for over a year. As we wrap up season 2, we want to certainly thank and appreciate every single person who's downloaded us and spent at least a little bit of time. And I don't want to fully speak for Doc, but I will say that I hope that to any extent that we've made a difference in your life, that we've given you something to think about in your own behavior, whether you've recognized a pattern that is less than optimal for you, or whether you figured out a way to make improvements in your life, whether you've had an epiphany about a relationship that you've been in, whether be it romantic or familial or what have you, that you've taken something away from this show. That is, I think, our ultimate goal, and has been since we started with Eddie Brock over a year ago. It's been to destigmatize mental health. And on a side note, I just want to end with the story that I reached out to an Instagram person that I follow. She's a runner. I'm not going to divulge the name because I don't want to completely put her on blast, but she's a runner, and I follow her because I like her stories, and I like the general way in which she presents her posts. She posted that because she was grappling with all the issues, and then she finally got the treatment that she needed. And one of her posts was about destigmatizing mental health and wanting to open up that discussion and being frank that if you are going through this, there's no shame in asking for help. And I felt compelled to reach out to her and tell her that I was very proud of her for taking those steps, that I was glad to see that she was getting the help that she needed, and that even though I was some internet rando, that I felt strong enough to say that I support you, and I really hope that you continue to get better, and that I advocate the destigmatization of mental health. And so I mentioned, I think I plugged the podcast because at that point it wasn't about that.
Right.
But I just wanted to say to her that I'm rooting for you, and I hope that you have a strong support system around you that gives you the help that you need. And I don't know that I would have had the courage to reach out to her and make those kinds of statements if it weren't for this show. So if nothing else, I'm learning something, and I've said this before, I learn something with every new episode, whether it's about myself or people around me. And I'd like to think that over the course of these 44 episodes, I've learned how to become a more functional person, a more self-aware individual, and just a better overall person. And I hope that something that we've said in the past 44 episodes is connected with you as a listener.
If we made you laugh, I'm glad, and you deserve to do so. If we made you cry, I hope it was tears of joy. If we made you angry, I hope it's at the injustice that others still don't have the satisfaction of a fair world. And if we did anything that you don't think we should have, then I'd be more than willing to talk about it, because that's never the goal. I'd like to think from the reactions that I've received from other people that we are truly doing a positive thing. I know that during this hiatus, I will do my best to continue to write on the blog. I do have some ideas that may not pertain to one specific character at a time. And I'll admit that my work schedule simultaneously with Anthony's massive transition in life is going to be a little hectic. But if this is the one way that I'm able to make a significant difference in the world, aside from one patient at a time, then I'm happy to do it for the rest of my life. If this is too preachy, then I'll admit I don't have any other way to soften that blow, because that's just who I am. I actually am very open to plenty of people's opinions on how things should go. I'm not a dictator, but especially after Anthony was willing to say what he did, I figured I'd also be as open as I possibly can be about how just knowing we're doing this makes me realize my own value as a human being. I've given hints here and there about my own situation and my own thought processes. I'm not immune, and I know that. And it's great to have someone like him take this ride with me, because although I have professionals that have served as therapists to help me, sometimes the best therapist you can have is the best friend in the world.
Absolutely. There's nobody else I'd rather do this with, and you know that, brother. So I love you. I appreciate you as a friend and as a therapist of sorts, and as a brother. So, and I can't wait to see what the future continues to hold for us and for this show. And I apologize if we got a little sappy on you there at the end, but it's just sort of how we roll. So you can continue to follow us on social media. I will do my best to stay active, and I will definitely be posting photos of my new son on the social media pages so that all of you who follow us can see him and my beaming joy as a brand new father. I will just add that at some point in the month of April, my guest appearance that I recorded on Into the Night, the Moon Knight themed podcast, will be live. So you can check them out. It's ITK Moon Knight on Twitter. And I believe that's also their Instagram. So that will be my discussion that I recorded a while back. That episode will be airing. And I know at some point I'll also be recording a guest spot again with Popcorn Psychology. Our friends have asked me to join them on their episode about The Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite movie of all time. And I cannot wait. It's going to be so amazing. But in any event, thank you to all of our fans who have followed us, and we will make sure that we continue to stay in touch with you throughout the hiatus, and hopefully we'll be back before you know it. So, Doc, anything else you want to add?
Nah, I'm pretty sure my spiel was all I got left in the tank right now.
Fair enough. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you soon.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.